Michael Jackson's black limousine was stuck in London, traffic on a rainy June afternoon in 1995, when he heard something that made him press his face against the tinted window and whisper 2 words to his driver, "Stop now." Through the rain and the noise of Piccadilly Circus, Michael had heard a sound that shouldn't have been possible. Someone was playing Billie Jean on a street piano. But they weren't just playing it. They were reimagining it. Jazz influences, classical touches, soul woven through every note. It was his song, but somehow more beautiful than he'd ever heard it performed. Michael stepped out of the limo, security scrambling to keep up, and walked toward the sound. That's when he saw the boy, 11 years old, sitting at a battered upright piano on the corner of the street. Thin frame suggesting he didn't eat regularly, worn clothes that had seen better days, fingers moving across the keys with impossible precision, and eyes that stared at nothing. Because the boy was blind, had been since birth, couldn't see the keys he was playing, couldn't see the crowd gathering, couldn't see Michael Jackson standing 10 feet away with tears streaming down his face. The boy, Oliver Bennett, had no idea that the man he'd listened to on scratchy radios in foster homes and shelters his whole life was watching him play. Had no idea that in 90 seconds, his entire life was about to change. Because when Oliver finished the song and the small crowd applauded, Michael Jackson walked forward and said 5 words that would echo through music history. "You play it better than me." This is the story of a blind boy who saw music in colors nobody else could perceive. A boy who'd been told his entire life that blindness made him useless. A boy who lived on London streets because his own mother couldn't afford to keep him. And the story of how Michael Jackson heard something in that boy's playing that nobody else heard. Not just talent, but a different way of experiencing music entirely. June 12, 1995, London, England. Shaftesbury Avenue, just off Piccadilly Circus. The rain had been falling since dawn, turning the busy London street into a river of umbrellas and hurrying pedestrians. Street vendors were packing up their carts. Tourists were ducking into shops and cafes. Everyone was looking for shelter from the relentless rain. Everyone except Oliver Bennett. Oliver sat at his piano, a battered upright that had been sitting on this corner for 3 years, his thin fingers dancing across keys that were chipped, yellowed, and desperately out of tune. He'd been here since 7 that morning. It was now approaching 6 in the evening. 11 hours. His back ached from hunching over the old instrument. His fingers were cramping. His stomach growled with hunger. He hadn't eaten since the stale sandwich someone had given him the previous night at St. Mark's Shelter. But Oliver kept playing, because this wasn't a hobby. This wasn't a passion project. This was survival. Every coin that dropped into his open piano case meant another day of food, another night with a roof over his head. Oliver Bennett had been born at Queen Charlotte's Hospital in London on February 14, 1984. His mother, Jane Bennett, was 19 years old, unmarried, working as a waitress at a small cafe in Camden. When the doctors told Jane that her newborn son was blind, congenital blindness they called it, she'd cried for 3 days straight. Oliver's father left the hospital the day the diagnosis came, walked out and never came back. Jane received divorce papers 3 months later with a note that said simply, "I can't raise a blind kid." "I'm sorry," Jane tried. She worked multiple jobs, waitressing during the day, cleaning offices at night. She took Oliver to every free clinic and charity program she could locate. She learned Braille so she could teach him. She fought with school administrators to get him proper accommodations. But by the time Oliver was 8 years old, Jane was working 3 jobs and still couldn't make rent most months. The government assistance barely covered food. Special equipment for blind children cost money she didn't have. When Oliver was 4 years old, Jane had bought a small keyboard at a charity shop. £5, half the keys stuck. She'd given it to Oliver thinking maybe it would keep him entertained. Oliver had sat down at that keyboard and played a melody he'd heard once on the radio 3 weeks earlier. Perfect pitch, perfect rhythm, perfect memory. Jane had stood in the doorway of their tiny council flat, watching her blind 4-year-old play piano like he'd been doing it his entire life, and realized Oliver had a gift. A genuine, undeniable, extraordinary gift. But gifts don't pay rent. By the time Oliver was 8, Jane made the most heartbreaking decision of her life. She couldn't afford to keep Oliver home anymore. So she made an arrangement with St. Mark's Church Shelter. Oliver would stay there during the week. Jane would see him on weekends when she wasn't working double shifts. And Oliver would play piano on the streets during the day, earning money that would go toward his care. Oliver had been living this way for 3 years when Michael Jackson's limousine stopped on Shaftesbury Avenue that rainy June afternoon. The piano Oliver played belonged to nobody and everybody. It had appeared on the corner 3 years earlier when a shop owner named Mr. Chen's music store had flooded. The piano was water-damaged, terribly out of tune, and too heavy to move back inside. So it sat there, gradually weathering in the London rain and sun. But to Oliver, it was the most beautiful instrument in the world. Because Oliver didn't hear out-of-tune notes or sticking keys. He heard potential. He heard color. He heard purple and gold when he played Billie Jean, red and black when he played Thriller, silver and blue when he played Man in the Mirror. Oliver had chromesthesia, a rare neurological condition where sounds create colors in the mind. Musical notes painted pictures as vivid and real as anything sighted people saw with their eyes. When Oliver played C major, he saw warm yellow light spreading like sunshine. C sharp was cooler, more blue-white, like moonlight. D was orange, bright and energetic. E was green, fresh and alive. Each note had its own color, its own texture, its own visual signature in the darkness behind Oliver's sightless eyes. Michael Jackson's music was Oliver's favorite because it was the most colorful music he'd ever experienced. The bass lines were deep purples and blues, rich and hypnotic. The melodies were golds and silvers, shimmering and transcendent. That June afternoon, Oliver was playing Billie Jean for probably the 100th time that week. It was his most requested song. It reliably earned him the most coins, which meant it reliably kept him fed. But Oliver never played Billie Jean the same way twice. Because every time he sat at that piano, he saw different shades of purple, different tones of gold. Today, in the rain, with gray clouds overhead, Billie Jean was darker than usual. Deeper purples, almost indigo. Richer golds, almost bronze. He added minor chord substitutions that created new colors he'd never seen before, burgundy and copper and shades that had no names. Oliver had no idea that 3 blocks away, the man who had created this song was sitting in the back of a limousine, emotionally exhausted and spiritually depleted from 2 years of intense media persecution. Michael Jackson had been fighting for his life and his reputation since 1993. The allegations had been devastating, even though no criminal charges were ever filed. Even though multiple investigations had found no evidence of wrongdoing. Even though the case had been settled, the damage to his reputation was catastrophic. The media had painted him as guilty. The public had turned on him. Radio stations stopped playing his music. Friends in the industry distanced themselves. People he'd known for decades suddenly didn't return his phone calls. Michael was hurt, angry, betrayed, but mostly he was exhausted. Music, his sanctuary, his first love, had started to feel like another obligation. He'd been in London for 3 days, preparing for the History World Tour's European leg. Rehearsals, production meetings, everything meticulously planned, everything perfectly executed, but empty. It all felt empty, until he heard Oliver playing. The sound came through the limousine's closed windows, faint at first, barely audible, but unmistakable. Someone was playing Billie Jean, his song. But this version was different. This version had something Michael rarely heard in professional performances anymore. Soul. Genuine, unfiltered, impossible to fake soul. Michael pressed his face against the tinted window. "James," he said to his driver, "do you hear that?" "I think that's a street musician, Mr. Jackson." Michael listened more intently. This wasn't just someone busking for coins. This was someone who understood his music. "Stop the car." "Sir, we're already running late for—" "Stop the car, now, please." Michael opened the door and stepped into the London rain. Within seconds, a few pedestrians recognized him. Phones started coming out. People began gathering. But Michael wasn't paying attention. He was walking toward the music. And then he saw Oliver. The boy was heartbreakingly small for 11 years old, malnourished. His clothes were clean but worn threadbare. His hair needed cutting. His shoes had holes that let the rain soak through. But his hands, his small, thin hands, moved across those piano keys with the confidence and precision of someone who'd been playing professionally for decades. In those eyes, those beautiful hazel eyes that stared at nothing and everything simultaneously, Michael stood there getting soaked, security forming a protective circle around him, and he listened. Really listened in a way he hadn't listened to music in months. Oliver's Billie Jean kept the iconic bass line, but Oliver had added jazz harmonies that created tension and release in unexpected moments. Classical runs that elevated the melody to something almost symphonic. And soul, genuine, heartfelt soul that came from somewhere deep and true. When Oliver played the chorus, Michael felt something break open inside his chest. This 11-year-old blind street musician understood what Michael had been trying to express when he wrote this song. The loneliness of being seen by millions but known by no one. The confusion of being desired for what you represent but not loved for who you are. This boy, who couldn't even see the world around him, could see into Michael's heart better than most people who claimed to know him. The song ended. Oliver lifted his hands from the keys. The small crowd applauded enthusiastically. Coins and bills showered into Oliver's open piano case. Oliver smiled. That shy, uncertain smile of someone who's learned not to expect too much from life. That's when Michael realized with absolute certainty, this boy couldn't see the audience. Couldn't see the man whose music had just saved standing 10 feet away with tears streaming down his face. Michael stepped forward. "Hello?" Oliver's head turned sharply toward the voice. "Hello, sir. Thank you for listening." Up close, Michael could see just how young Oliver was. How malnourished. This was a child struggling to survive day by day. "That was beautiful," Michael said softly. "Where did you learn to play like that?" Oliver's shy smile widened slightly. "I taught myself, sir. I listen to music on the radio and then I figure out how to play it. I can't read music, I can't read anything, but I can hear it and then my hands know what to do." "You learned Billie Jean just by listening to it?" "Yes, sir. I've listened to it hundreds of times, maybe thousands. It's one of my absolute favorites. Michael Jackson is everything to me. His music is the only thing in my life that helps me see." Michael's throat tightened. "What do you mean?" Oliver tilted his head. "I'm blind, sir. Have been since I was born. I've never seen colors the way other people do. Never seen faces or trees or the sky." He paused, his expression becoming more animated. "But when I play music, especially Michael Jackson's music, I can see colors. Beautiful colors. Billie Jean is purple and gold, deep purple like night sky and shimmering gold like treasure. The colors are so beautiful, sir." Michael was completely speechless. In 25 years of performing, he had never, not once, heard anyone describe his music like this. "What's your name?" Michael asked. "Oliver Bennett, sir." "Oliver, I'm Michael Jackson," Oliver interrupted, his face suddenly lighting up. "Oh my God, I know your voice. I've listened to you my whole life. You're really here?" "I'm really here. And I really heard you play my song." Oliver's hands started shaking. Did I play it okay? I hope I didn't ruin it." "Oliver," Michael interrupted gently, kneeling down on the wet pavement. "It was perfect. Better than perfect. You didn't ruin my song. You made it more beautiful than I ever imagined it could be. You play it better than me." Tears formed instantly in Oliver's sightless eyes. "That's not possible, sir. You're Michael Jackson. You're the king of pop. I'm just a blind kid who plays piano on the street for coins. And I'm just a man who writes songs. But you, Oliver, you see those songs in ways I never could. You're extraordinary." Michael reached out and put his hands on Oliver's thin shoulders. "Oliver, where are your parents?" Oliver's face fell. "My dad left the hospital when I was born. When the doctors told him I was blind. I've never met him. And your mother?" "She loves me. She really does. She tries so hard, but she can't afford to keep me, sir. She works 3 jobs and it's still not enough. So I stay at St. Mark's Church shelter most of the time. And I come here during the day to play piano. The money I make helps pay for my bed at the shelter and helps my mom too." "You're 11 years old and you're living in a shelter?" "It's really not so bad, sir. And playing piano makes me feel less alone. When I play your music, I can see those beautiful colors. And for a little while, I'm somewhere magical." Michael felt something break inside his chest. This extraordinarily gifted child was sleeping in shelters and playing for coins because the world had decided his blindness made him worthless. "Oliver," Michael said, his voice filled with emotion, "how would you like to play piano somewhere other than this street corner?" Oliver looked confused. "Where would I play, sir?" "Wembley Stadium. With me, on stage, in front of 72,000 people." Oliver laughed, a sad, disbelieving laugh. "You're joking with me." "I'm not joking. I'm completely serious. Oliver, you have a gift. The world needs to hear what you can do. And I want to help you show them." "But I'm blind, sir." I can't see the audience. People will laugh at me. Oliver, listen to me. Michael's voice was firm but kind. Blindness isn't your limitation. It's your gift. You hear music differently than anyone I've ever met. You understand harmony and melody and rhythm in ways that sighted musicians spend decades trying to learn. That's your superpower. Oliver was crying openly now. Nobody's ever said anything like that to me before, sir. Everyone always talks about my blindness like it's something wrong with me. Then everyone was wrong. You're not broken, Oliver. You're extraordinary, and I'm going to prove it to you and to the world. Over the next 2 hours, while rain continued to fall, Michael made a series of phone calls that would change Oliver Bennett's life forever. He tracked down Jane Bennett at the restaurant where she was working, explained his proposal. Oliver would join the History World Tour as a featured guest pianist. He would receive training from world-class instructors, proper nutrition, proper housing, medical care, educational support. And Jane would receive financial support, enough money to quit 2 of her 3 jobs, enough to afford a proper apartment. Jane Bennett cried so hard on the phone she could barely speak. Why would you do this for us? Because your son has a gift that the world needs to hear, and because every child deserves a chance to be seen for who they really are. Oliver is extraordinary, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows it. Michael arranged everything personally. Flights to California, visas, legal paperwork, doctors to address the malnutrition, educational consultants to develop a learning plan for a blind child with exceptional musical gifts. 2 weeks later, Oliver Bennett stood in the grand entrance hall of Neverland Ranch, completely overwhelmed. Then Michael led him to the music room and showed him the piano. A Steinway & Sons Model D concert grand. 9 feet of perfectly tuned, immaculately maintained, acoustically perfect instrument. When Oliver's fingers first touched those keys, he burst into tears. This piano didn't fight him. Every key responded instantly. Every note rang pure and clear and exactly in tune. "This is yours," Michael told him. "For as long as you want it." "Mine," Oliver whispered. "This beautiful piano is mine." "Yours." Oliver played a few notes. Then a cascade of sound that filled the entire music room with color. And for the first time in his life, he heard exactly what he'd been trying to create. Michael spent hours each day with Oliver over the next 2 weeks. Not teaching him to play, Oliver needed no lessons. Teaching him to trust himself, to believe that his way of experiencing music wasn't wrong. It was special, valuable. "When you play at Wembley," Michael explained, "there will be 72,000 people watching you. But I don't want you to think about any of that. You're not performing for them. You're sharing your vision. You're showing them something only you can show them." They practiced Billie Jean over and over. Oliver's version. The one with the jazz harmonies and classical runs and soul that came from seeing purple and gold blooming in darkness. Michael also encouraged Oliver's original compositions. Because Oliver didn't just play other people's music brilliantly, he created his own. This one, Oliver played a haunting melody, is what it feels like to remember something you've never actually seen. It's blue-gray with threads of silver, like morning fog over water. July 3rd, 1995, Wembley Stadium. 72,000 people packed into every available seat. Backstage, Oliver Bennett was absolutely paralyzed with terror. "I can't do this," he told Michael. "There are too many people. What if I mess up? What if they laugh at the blind kid?" Michael knelt in front of Oliver and took both of the boy's trembling hands. "Do you remember what purple and gold look like when you play Billie Jean?" "Yes, that's all you need to remember. You're not playing for 72,000 people tonight. You're painting colors that only you can see. But what if? No what ifs. Oliver, what you can do is more special than anything I've ever done. You're not just playing notes. You're translating an entire different way of experiencing reality into sound. That's magic." When Oliver walked onto that Wembley Stadium stage, led gently by Michael's hand, his terror reached its peak. Then Michael leaned close and whispered, "Show them purple and gold, Oliver. Paint me a picture." And suddenly, Oliver remembered why he played, remembered the colors. He sat at the grand piano, took a deep breath. Let the terrified 11-year-old street kid fade away. Let Oliver the musician take over. Michael spoke into his microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to someone very special. This is Oliver Bennett. He's 11 years old. He's from right here in London. And Oliver is blind, has been since birth. But Oliver sees music. He has a gift called chromesthesia. When he plays piano, he sees colors. He sees Billie Jean as purple and gold. And tonight, he's going to show all of us what that looks like. The crowd cheered, but Oliver couldn't hear them anymore. Because his fingers had found the opening notes of Billie Jean, and suddenly he wasn't at Wembley Stadium at all. He was somewhere else entirely, somewhere made of pure color and sound. He played for 5 minutes. 5 minutes that contained every ounce of soul he possessed, every moment of loneliness from his years sleeping in shelters, every hour of hunger and cold, every second of wondering if anyone would ever see him as something other than the blind boy, but also every moment of joy he'd ever felt through music, every beautiful color he'd ever seen in his mind. He played the iconic bass line, but he added his own jazz harmonies that created new colors, indigo and amber. He wove in classical runs that made the melody soar. When the final note faded away, when Oliver lifted his hands from the keys, there was a moment of perfect silence. Then Wembley Stadium absolutely erupted. The roar was so loud that Oliver could feel it vibrating through the stage floor. 72,000 people on their feet, screaming, crying, applauding so loudly it sounded like the stadium might collapse. Oliver sat at the piano, tears streaming down his face. For the first time in his 11 years of life, he understood something important. He wasn't broken, wasn't limited, wasn't less than anyone else. He was extraordinary, and 72,000 people had just witnessed it. Michael Jackson pulled Oliver into a fierce hug. "You showed them, Oliver. You showed all of them. You beautiful, brilliant, extraordinary boy." Oliver Bennett performed at every single show for the rest of the History World Tour. 23 European cities, 47 performances. The music industry exploded with interest. Record executives from every major label fought for the chance to sign Oliver. But Michael Jackson was fiercely protective. He hired the best entertainment lawyers to review every contract. He hired business managers to invest Oliver's money wisely. He made sure Oliver continued his education with specialized teachers. Most importantly, Michael made sure Oliver stayed connected to his mother, Jane. Today, Oliver Bennett is 40 years old. He's won 3 Grammy Awards. He's performed with the London Symphony Orchestra, the Berlin Philharmonic, and the New York Philharmonic. He's played at Carnegie Hall, the Sydney Opera House, the Royal Albert Hall. He's composed film scores for major motion pictures. He's written a classical piano concerto that's now part of the standard repertoire. He teaches masterclasses at Juilliard in Berkeley, where he specializes in helping students understand music as a multisensory experience. And in every interview, Oliver Bennett credits Michael Jackson with saving his life. "Michael didn't teach me to play piano," Oliver always says. "I already knew how to play. Michael taught me something far more important. He taught me to see myself the way he saw me, not as a blind boy who couldn't do things, but as an artist who could do things nobody else could do." People always ask me if I wish I could see, and the answer is always no, because if I could see the way you see, I might not hear music the way I hear it. My blindness isn't what I lost. It's what I gained. It's my gift. Michael Jackson gave me something more valuable than sight. He gave me permission to be exactly who I am. He showed me that being different isn't something to apologize for. It's something to celebrate. In Oliver's music studio in London, there's one photograph that holds pride of place on the wall. It's from that first night at Wembley Stadium, Oliver at the grand piano, completely lost in his music. Michael standing beside him with one hand on Oliver's shoulder. And behind them, 72,000 people on their feet. Beneath the photograph is a quote from Michael Jackson. "Sometimes the people who can't see the world with their eyes are the ones who understand it best with their hearts." Oliver's story reminds us that what society calls limitations are often just different ways of experiencing reality. That disability doesn't mean inability, it means different ability. Michael Jackson stopped his limousine in the London rain because he heard something beautiful. But what he discovered was something far more important. He discovered a child who needed someone to believe in him, to see his extraordinary gift instead of his disability. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is exactly what Michael did that rainy June afternoon. Stop what you're doing, listen to someone the world has decided to ignore, and recognize genius even when it doesn't look the way you expect. Oliver Bennett was playing for coins on a rainy London street corner, told his entire life that his blindness made him worthless. 3 weeks later, he was playing at Wembley Stadium in front of 72,000 people who finally saw him for what he truly was, not a blind boy, but an extraordinary artist. Because sometimes, just sometimes, The only thing standing between obscurity and greatness is one person willing to stop their limousine, walk through the rain, and say 5 simple words that change everything. You play it better than me.